I used to work on the hidden web. I won't get into how I came into this line of work. My job simply consisted of tracking down people I was paid to find, taking them, and bringing them to a specific location. I never concerned myself with what would happen to those people afterwards, but from what I understood, they were usually traded away or held for ransom. After years of doing this kind of work, I eventually became desensitized to it. To me, it was just another day at the office. The only difference was that this paid much better. I should also point out that I didn't work alone. I had a partner that helped me. For the sake of this story, I'll call him Sam. Sam and I met through the Hidden Web forums about 3 months after I started my work. He was much more experienced in taking people from the Hidden Web than I was, having done it for several years. But as he was getting older, he realized the job was too difficult to do on his own anymore. After talking for a while, we eventually agreed to work together. I would help him perform the tasks that were more difficult for him to do due to his age, and he would guide me along, as well as bring me along on more difficult, high-paying jobs to reduce the risk of me screwing them up. After meeting, we quickly realized that we were a good match. It only took a few weeks to get into a groove. We had been contacted by employers via the forums, given a target, as well as any other important information that would be crucial for the task. Sam and I would then drive his van to the location to scope it out. We would spend whatever time we had getting any information our employer left out, such as schedules and patterns. Then, we would decide on a date, time, and location, and then secure our target and bring them to a specified drop point given to us by our employer. We would be paid, and then move on to the next job. We did our job like clockwork. As horrible of a job as it was, we were really good at it. We eventually got to the point where we could secure a target within a matter of days. We soon were able to live comfortably. Of course, we weren't stupid enough to grow complacent. After all, the hidden web is a dangerous place for anyone who isn't careful. We were living smoothly, not really caring about the people we were hurting to do so. All we cared about was our fat wallets and nice homes. But then one day, everything came crashing down around us. Sam and I had been sent a job by an unnamed employer. They had instructed us to secure a 19-year-old man who lived in a wealthy neighborhood. This wasn't very abnormal for us. Plenty of previous employers sent us to secure wealthy targets, usually to ransom off. What was abnormal were the set of rules that they'd given us. They'd told us that the target had no security system in his home, but we were not taking this for granted. We were to practice extreme caution and vigilance when securing the target, and we were to consider him extremely dangerous. Finally, the strangest instruction they gave us was that we were to administer carfentanil or a similar drug via tranquilizer darts before securing. It wasn't the fact that our employer wanted us to tranquilize our target that was strange. We had done it to plenty of previous targets before. What was strange was that they specifically requested we use carfentanil. That was the type of tranquilizer they used on elephants. Even a single dart of this stuff would be enough to kill a human. Let me make it clear that we were not hitmen. Sam and I had never killed anyone in our lives, before or after taking on this line of work. We knew there was no way we could use this stuff to take our target alive. We just assumed our employer didn't really know much about tranquilizers and just wanted to sound smart by including a specific kind. I really wish we would have just listened to their instructions. We started studying our target the day after we had received our instructions. The boy was a recluse to say the least. From what we could tell, he lived in his parents' house, and they were almost never home. He spent pretty much every day indoors, doing whatever he wanted to pass the time. Reading, playing video games, watching TV. Typical teenager stuff. For the life of us, Sam and I couldn't find a single reason to consider this kid intimidating, let alone dangerous. He seemed to live an extremely sheltered life, and had more than likely never been in a fight before. But we had a job to do, and we had to follow the rules we were given the best that we could. On the night we went to extract, we parked our van just outside the kid's home. Nobody else in the neighborhood was awake, so it would be relatively simple to pull him out once we got him. Sam sat up in front, while I laid in the back of the van, aiming the tranquilizer rifle through the back doors. The way the van was parked gave me a perfect vantage point to the kid's house. Also, in case you were wondering, I wasn't using carfentanil, opting to use a weaker drug that wouldn't kill a human being. I wasn't concerned about our employer being upset their instructions weren't followed exactly. Unless they were planning on testing the kid's blood when they got him, there wasn't any way that they would know. After 30 minutes of waiting, the kid appeared in the kitchen window. We weren't too far away, so the amount of detail I could see through was very high. He had a mop of wavy blonde hair, a splash of freckles on his nose and cheeks, and piercing emerald eyes. He was pouring himself a glass of water when I tagged him. His reaction was surprisingly tame. He jumped from surprise as the dart entered his neck, but he didn't scream. When he pulled it out, he didn't look scared or confused. If anything, he only looked annoyed, as if he had just swatted a mosquito that had landed on him. And then he turned his head and looked right at me. I had been doing this job for about 4 years at this point, and I had seen some freaky stuff. Sure, most of it was when I was browsing the hidden web, but nevertheless, there was almost nothing that scared me. The look this kid gave me freaked me out. It's hard to describe exactly what his expression was as his eyes burned into me, but the best way I could describe it was an expression that said, "I dare you to come for me. You won't like what'll happen if you do." After that, the kid turned off the kitchen light and walked out of view. The van shook as Sam opened the door and hopped out, walking around to me. He had a body bag in one hand and a flashlight in the other. "Alright, partner, you ready to go do this?" he said calmly. I don't know if he saw the kid's expression or not, but if he did, he wasn't showing it. Yeah, let's go," I said, packing away the rifle and grabbing my own flashlight. "Christ, this is a nice house," Sam said absent-mindedly. "This is one lucky kid. I know it's not what we normally do, but maybe we could rob the place while we're here, yeah?" I didn't respond as we walked towards the house. I picked the lock to the back door and we stepped in quietly. All the lights were off and the place was dead silent. First, we went to the kitchen. We both knew the kid probably wouldn't be there. The tranquilizers take a while to kick in, and if he had walked away after getting tagged, he'd probably be somewhere else in the house. We were right. The kitchen was empty, without any dishes or food on the counters, save for a half-full glass of water. We continued searching the house, but it became quickly apparent that something was wrong. No matter how hard we looked, we couldn't find the kid anywhere. He should have fallen unconscious by now, the tranquilizer having long since taken effect, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Are you sure you hit the dang kid?" Sam hissed at me after several minutes of fruitless searching. "I swear if you screw up this job because of crappy aim, I'm gonna kill you." "I know I hit him," I snapped. "I even saw him pull the dart out." "Well then where the heck is he?" Sam asked. "He couldn't have gotten far, not with that tranquilizer in him." Our argument was cut short by a noise coming from the other side of the house. It sounded like multiple thuds in quick succession, like someone was loudly stomping around. The noise continued for a minute, moving around the house before finally stopping. Sam and I quickly split up to investigate. We weren't sure about where the noise was coming from, and we didn't want to risk our target getting away. I walked back through the kitchen to the living room. I was about to make a move onto the next room when something caught my eye. On the floor was a pile of fabric. When I looked closer, I found that it was a pile of clothes. I recognized it as the clothes the kid was wearing. By the looks of it, he had stripped completely naked and left his clothes here. I had no idea why he did this. Stripping naked didn't really give you a tactical advantage when trying to escape a kidnapping. At least not one that I could think of. Taking off your shoes can make your footsteps quieter, but taking off all of your clothing wasn't really necessary. I was trying to think of a good reason for the kid stripping when my thoughts were interrupted by a blood-curdling scream coming from the other end of the house. I instantly recognized the voice as Sam's. I ran as fast as I could to where the scream came from. When I got there, Sam was lying on the ground of the hallway. From where I was standing, I couldn't see any more than his upper torso, arms, and head. He was clinging to the wall for dear life, while something in the hallway that I couldn't see pulled and wrenched at his legs. Whatever it was strong and determined to pull Sam loose. I bolted forward, desperately trying to help my partner get free. I didn't even make it halfway before Sam lost his grip and was pulled out of sight. He was screaming and crying, begging me to save him. When I rounded the corner, whoever had him was pulling him through the basement door. I only saw Sam for a split second before he was pulled down the stairs to the basement. I ran to the door, flicking the light switch on. Nothing happened. Someone had shut off the power to the house. I was caught between praying that this thing was alone and praying that it wasn't. If it was alone, that meant that we wouldn't have to deal with anybody or anything else. But that would also mean that it was smart enough to know to shut the power off in order to get the upper hand. I was shaken from my thoughts by the realization that Sam had stopped screaming. I seriously considered making a break for it and leaving him behind. It was easy to assume that he was dead, but even horrible people can make friends, and as much as I wanted to deny it, I had formed a bond with Sam over the years of working with him. I couldn't bring myself to leave him behind. So, scolding myself for being stupid, I made my way down the stairs. When I got to the bottom, I expected the basement to be silent. Instead, I heard a distinct crunching noise coming from the other end of the room. I tried to discern what the noise was by sound alone, but the adrenaline pumping through me made it hard to focus. With trembling hands, I clicked on my flashlight and aimed it towards the noise. I spent every day wishing that I had never done that. A gangly creature was hanging from an exposed bar jutting from the ceiling of the basement. It appeared human, but only barely. Its arms were too long, with nails like claws. Its legs and feet had too many joints, which allowed it to hang upside down from the ceiling like a bat. It seemed to have skin that didn't fit its own skeleton, with some areas being stretched thin while others were bunched up. As for the crunching noise, I found out quickly where it came from. Sam hung limply from the creature's grip. He was clearly dead, with large chunks of his flesh missing. Every few moments, the creature would pull Sam's body up towards its mouth and take a large bite out of him, tearing the flesh away and chewing loudly. It didn't seem to be picky either. It ate whatever part its mouth found, including bone. Once it realized it had a flashlight trained in it, it stopped eating Sam's corpse and looked up at me. Its face was a bloody mess. The features of its face were twisted horribly. Its jaw was so wide open, I thought it was disconnected from its skull, and its eyes lacked any sense of humanity. This thing was a monster, and I knew it would kill me without hesitation if it got the chance. I was frozen by fear, staring at this thing, when recognition suddenly struck me. The monster had horrifying features, but the blonde hair, freckles, and green eyes made everything fall into place. This thing was our target. It was the kid that we had been sent here to capture. His features may have been mangled and warped, but there was no denying that this monstrosity was him. I understood why the tranquilizer didn't work, and why our employer instructed us to use the drugs that they had wanted. Why they would want this thing alive is beyond me. I would sleep much better at night if I knew this thing was in a deep, deep grave. After what seemed like hours of unbroken eye contact, the monster screeched at me. That was enough to send me sprinting up the stairs. I didn't stop running. Didn't turn around to see if this thing was chasing me. I kept running until I got to the van, jumped in the driver's seat, and peeled off into the street. I went several miles over the speed limit, but I didn't care. I wouldn't feel safe until I was miles away from that beast. After skipping town, I emptied my savings account and liquidized everything I owned. After that, I went through an extensive process to erase any lingering trails. I changed my name, underwent plastic surgery, and whatever little presence I had on the web, I thoroughly scrubbed clean. Any evidence of the man I was before was completely gone by the time that I had finished. As far as anyone was concerned, I never existed until 2 months ago. I had made a promise to myself to never bring up what I saw, to bury the past as deep as it would go. But I had been plagued by nightmares ever since seeing that monster, and I thought that maybe if I warned the world of its existence, my conscience might be alleviated. I can't go into detail about where this beast is located. It's better for everyone if that is kept a secret. As for whoever it was that wanted to capture the beast, I haven't heard from them since. In all honesty, I'm actually glad we didn't succeed in capturing it. I don't want to find out what their plans for the monster were when they got it. So, take this as a warning. People say that the hidden web is full of monsters. I learned the hard way that sometimes that can be taken literally.